Jon Jones retires. Tom Aspinall is now your unified heavyweight champion. And boy, does the UFC have a problem. Because everything about how this went down was an absolute shit show. Now, I had a video probably 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and it was clickbaity. And I admitted that right from the get-go, that Jon Jones was not scared of Tom Aspinall. And I still believe that. I don't think he was necessarily scared of him. I just think that for Jon Jones, looking at his legacy, I don't think he thought it was worth it to fight Tom Aspinall. I think he identified Tom Aspinall as his biggest threat, and he said, nah, I'm good. But for everything how this went down, it's just weak from top to bottom. I mean, let's take a look at it. You have Dana White a week ago saying, yeah, this fight will happen. Guaranteed to happen. Sure, it's going to happen. We'll get it done. And he's getting pressure by everybody. I mean, you've got fighters coming out saying, why hasn't this guy been stripped? And we all know why he hasn't been stripped. It's Dana White privilege, but he hasn't been stripped. And you've got Dana White finally having to say, you know, I'm going to give it like 2 more weeks and then we got to move on. And you'd think that that would spurn on something. I guess Dana White thought that, you know, Jon Jones would come to his senses, but no. And Jon Jones ends up calling up the UFC and telling them, I'm retired. When I say everything about this went down horribly, like, the fact that this was announced in a post-fight press conference in a place that most people can't find on a map, and it wasn't like Dana White came out and said this. It was like he waited for the question to come because he knew the question was coming. That is so weak. That is beyond weak. The fact that Jon Jones, allegedly, from what we're told, and we're told by Dana White, so like half of it might be true, some of it might be true, you never know with him. But the deal was done. Jon Jones had a huge number he wanted. They got the money, they agreed, Jon Jones agreed, and then like a couple days later he said, no, I'm good. The UFC kept pressuring him, and he said, you know what, in fact, I am retired, deuces. That is weak. But for Dana White, this is a massive issue for the UFC. Huge. Because their heavyweight division sucks. It is horrible. It is a trash division. And this fight, this was the one fight that I don't want to say could save the heavyweight division, but it could prolong the death sentence for the heavyweight division. It could prolong it in enough time for maybe a contender to emerge. And yet, it didn't. And Dana White has to know that. So what does he do? He goes out there and he shits on the one guy that fans might actually want to see more than Jon Jones fight Tom Aspinall, and that is Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou, the guy that didn't lose to Jon Jones. Francis Ngannou, the guy that Jon Jones ducked as well. Francis Ngannou, the guy that was the heavyweight champion, contract ran up, he wanted a raise. The UFC said, no, we've got Jon Jones coming to heavyweight. We don't need you anymore. And Francis said, okay, I'm going to go box. I'm going to make way more money than you guys could ever give me. And then I'm going to, just beat up tomato cans in the PFL for, once again, way more money. For Dana White to come out and shit all over Francis Ngannou, dude, have you lost your mind? What he should have done was been hyping up Francis Ngannou instead of shitting all over any idea that Francis would ever come back. Francis Ngannou is not Mo Makayev. Dana, you need Francis Ngannou. You need that guy. Because when you look at your top of the heavyweight division, it is bad, my man. Alexander Volkanovski, not Alexander Volkanovski, Alexander Volkov is ranked 3rd in your heavyweight division. Think about that. A journeyman, poor man's Drago, who Tom Aspinall, by the way, has already beaten, is ranked 3rd. You know? I think Sergey Pavlovich, who Tom Aspinall beat, is ranked 2nd. Cyril Gane is the number 1 contender now, but the problem with Cyril Gane being the number 1 contender is the fact that when you look at it, and I know it's MMA math, but Jon Jones beat Cyril Gane. So if you match up Cyril Gane versus Tom Aspinall, and Tom Aspinall ends up losing, you're going to have a lot of MMA fans going, see? That's Jon Jones. Jon Jones beat Cyril Gane pretty easily. And look what happened, as if guys can't evolve. But that's going to be the narrative. It's going to be like, we wasted almost a year waiting for this super fight, only to watch Tom Aspinall lose to the guy that Jon Jones beat in like less than 2 minutes? That's what we waited? This is a disaster. They don't have anyone. You know, and for Tom Aspinall, I feel bad for him because he just wasted a year of his career waiting for this fight that never materialized. But for him to say, we want to get the heavyweight division back going, I agree. But they've tried for a year to find somebody, to find that next guy. They kind of rushed Cyril Gane into the fight, into the heavyweight fight. The one guy they had is fighting in the PFL. It's Francis Ngannou. The idea that Jon Jones was scared of anybody, and I said this in the original video, I don't believe that MMA fighters are scared of other fighters. You could make the case, though, that Jon Jones wanted absolutely no part of Francis Ngannou after watching Francis Ngannou just ether people. And I don't think one person would have blamed him. Personally, that was the fight I wanted. I always wanted Francis versus Jon. But for Jon Jones to hold up this division as long as he did, for Jon Jones to take his sweet time getting to heavyweight, only to then take 2 fights? One of them is against a 44-year-old firefighter that had a long, like a presidential layoff? A presidential term layoff. That's how your legacy is going to end. Whether Jon Jones wants to accept it or not, this is it. His legacy will be, whether I have swayed you or not, my guess is no. His legacy will be, you retired rather than fighting that guy. You retired because you were scared of that guy. You retired. You didn't want to fight him. You threw out an astronomical number to the UFC. They somehow were able to get the money for you. And you still said no. So, that's it. That's how the pound for pound goat goes out. That is weak. Everything about the announcement, everything about how this went, just weak. And the UFC is no better for it. And once again, I'm not even talking about a Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall fight, but it's the matter of Dana White cooked himself twice in this one. He cooked himself by announcing, obviously, that Jon Jones retired. Nothing you can do there. I get that. But then, to crap all over Francis Ngannou, the one guy who might be able to save this heavyweight division. What are you doing? You think Waldo Acosta-Cortez, you think he's gonna be the next guy? Jalton Almeida, maybe? None of these guys scream contender. So what you're going to end up having is the weakest division in the sport, and Tom Aspinall, who is leaps and bounds better than anybody else, beating up on these guys. There's no way he ever cuts down a light, so where do you go from here? I cannot believe that this is how it all ends. I can't believe that for the weirdest career, possibly, in MMA, it ends with Dana White announcing in some random I don't even remember where it is, but a random country after a UFC fight night, which was a fight day for us in America. That's how he announces, Jon Jones called us last night, retired. Tom Aspinall's the champion. Oh, by the way, the guy who might very well be the best heavyweight in the world, we want no parts of him. He's a scumbag. You crushed it, Dana. You crushed it. So who should Tom fight next? I guess Cyril Gane's there, right? Like, you match him up against most of these other people, then he's already beaten them. Pavlovich, Gane, Blades. I don't know. Do you think there's any chance whatsoever that Jon Jones fights again? I have seen this. I've seen a couple people say if Tom Aspinall were to lose the belt, Jon would come back. I think that's an even worse look. I think that is such a bad look. Because that is actually giving credence to, I was scared of the guy. I can buy into the, look, I didn't want to risk my legacy. This guy's really good. He's got no holes. I don't want to go out on a loss. I'll just retire. I can buy that. That logic's kind of sound to me. But the whole if he loses, then I'll come back. That just screams scared. And that's something that I just find a hard time believing. But maybe I'm naive. I don't know. All right, you guys know what to do. Subscribe. That's the most important thing. Like, dislike. You guys know where the buttons are. Just hit them. And, I'm going to go watch Netflix.